morning, good afternoon, and good night. This is Mark Fikes Jr. This is Become the Podcast. How do you become anything you dream, you declare, you commit, and success is your next breath. So I always say this, or sometimes I say this, but I mean it this time. This may be the quickest podcast of all time as it relates to the Become Podcast. So I was thinking about... One second. I'm doing a bunch of different things. I'm recording some different things on some of my other devices. So it has some noise in the background. So here we go. So this concept is for the person who is dealing with someone who is incredibly resilient. And then it is for the person who is resilient. And it's more so a warning, or if not a warning, it's designed to make you aware of what happens to people who are incredibly resilient. This is what I mean. Resilient people have a tendency to kind of handle their business, right? They have a tendency to handle their business. And sometimes they go into their zone by way of isolation. Sometimes they work harder. Sometimes they work longer. Sometimes they say less. Sometimes they think harder. Sometimes they pray more. Sometimes they engage more. Sometimes they disengage more. There's a lot of different ways in which people who are who persevere, there's different ways in which they kind of lock into their zone. And they may be dealing with a lot, right? But you'll never know because they're locked into their zone and they know that the only way out is through. And sometimes people who persevere take on unhealthy methods. But at the end of the day, that method might help them to get through the storm, right? So sometimes the methods may not be the most healthy, or they may not be the most ideal or fundamental, but at the end of the day, it helps them to get through. And once they get through, they're a ray of sunshine, they're a breath of fresh air, they are an inspiration, they are someone to truly applaud and admire. But sometimes it takes them to go to a different place in order for them to get there. But oftentimes you will see that person who's persevering, just handling their business, and they'll be going through something. And so what then happens is the people from the outside who don't recognize that the person who's persevering is going through so much because they're not wearing their hurt and their pain on their sleeve like victims do. Victims go through things and they want to let everybody know this is what I'm going through. So it's easier to be compassionate toward a victim because you can see how they've been hurt, right? They get hit and they want to lay on the ground and let you know, listen, I've been hit, I've been hurt, I can't move, I've been compromised. But somebody who perseveres, they get hit, and the last thing they want to let you see them do is not get up or not keep it moving. So they work their butts off to get hit, figure out why they got hit, but while they're thinking about that, they're trying to get themselves back on their feet, regain their balance, regain their composure, and keep it moving. And some people are so graceful that they get hit and they literally just dust themselves off and keep it moving. And what you may have seen was a devastating hit. Maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. Sometimes we don't even see the devastating hit. All we see is them dusting themselves off. So what it looks like to us is this person must not be going through much, or this person must be fine. So what happens is, because the person isn't playing the role of a victim and showing everybody their scars and telling everybody what they've been through, you sometimes download or dump on that person who's persevering as though they're not going through anything. And it's not until they completely break down, or until they decide to kind of give you a piece of their mind, or kind of let you know what time it is, until at that point you realize, oh, wait a minute, wow, you're going through all those things. I didn't know, I couldn't tell. You'll say, you handle yourself so well, I couldn't tell. And hopefully you understand what I mean by it's easier to be compassionate toward the victim, because the victim wants to let everybody see what's going on with them, right? Or what's wrong with them, or how they've been afflicted, or how they've been hurt. But a stud, or someone who perseveres, they don't want to let you see that. So sometimes you don't recognize what's happening. I had a good friend that was going through a lot. I didn't know it. And so I had a problem with this person. And I decided to download my BS, or my what's the word? I had an opportunity to give them a piece of my mind. And they then gave me a piece of their mind and let me know that everything that I brought up paled in comparison to what they were going through. So like all the things that was getting on my nerves and making me upset, when I compared them to what they were going through, I felt silly for even bringing my mess to them. I felt silly telling them what I thought was wrong, or my dispute, or why I was unpacked or undone. I felt silly even telling them, because what they were going through was even more real than I had even knew. And so if you're a person who's dealing with someone who's incredibly strong, be mindful of how you download on that person. You could either give that person the opportunity to talk. You can or you have to carefully tell this person, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. And maybe acknowledge this. And I know you're going through some things, but this is what I'm feeling. And some of this stuff might be silly. Some of this stuff might be real, but this is what I'm feeling. And be mindful that they may not respect it. They may just kind of just download back on you, right? But just be mindful that when you're dealing with a strong person, you decide to download on that person because you think they're doing all right. You may not know what they're going through. Now, if you know what they're going through, that's one thing. And sometimes, again, all depending on how they behave and how they handle it, you can't always tell if it's really impacting them a lot. And then there are other times when you think this person might be going through something, or you're not really sure, right? And so you download on them anyway. But again, just when you're dealing with tough people and people who persevere, just be mindful of how you dump on them and how you download on them. Because again, because of how they behave and how they handle things, when you're a loved one dumping on them, that's the last thing they need. That's the last thing they need. It's the last thing they want to hear. You know what I'm saying? So just be mindful of how you present it. The other thing is, what happens when you're the person who perseveres? Understand that, again, because of how you handle your business, everybody's not going to see your scars or your struggles, your trials and tribulations the same way they would see them on a victim. So when they hit you, a lot of times when they hit you and dump on you, sometimes they really don't know what you're going through because you're so strong. You know, you see them on sitcoms and movies and stuff like that, and you'll see this corny scene where the person might say, "You're just so strong. I wish I was as strong as you." And that person who is incredibly strong kind of chills out and it, humbles themselves and allows themselves to be human and kind of lets their guard down, and they're able to now have some, good dialogue. But that's real. That happens in life all the time. People who are incredibly strong don't always show their scars. And so then people kind of come after them with all their problems, or people may come after you with all of their problems. And you have to be mindful that, again, because of how you show up in life and how strong you are, not everybody's going to be mindful and aware that you might be going through something. So long story short, we're at 9 minutes. We're approaching 10 minutes. This one's short. Just be mindful that when you are dealing with people who persevere recognize that they too have feelings. They too have the capacity to break down. They too can sometimes, kind of feel the same way a victim may feel, but they show it a little bit different. So be conscious of when you start to download on them or bring your problems on them or criticize them. Just be conscious that from a loved one, that may be the last thing they need. And as a person who is strong, who is incredibly tough, who does persevere, recognize that not everybody is going to be conscious that you are going through something. And so they should be compassionate towards you, but you also need to be compassionate towards them on some level and just say, listen, I understand what you're going through. I'm going through some things myself. And maybe by being a little bit more transparent, making yourself a little bit vulnerable, you can kind of talk through some things and figure some things out and keep the lines of communication open. So I hope that makes sense. That's it. That was a quick one. 11 minutes and 17 seconds and counting. So I'll stop there and we'll pick it up tomorrow. So greatness lives on the edge of death. I am not afraid to die. I will fight for my dreams. I will celebrate my dreams, and I will die for my dreams. Thoughts are things, and everything starts off as a thought first. Be conscious and compassionate toward people who are incredibly tough. They have feelings as well. My name is Mark Fikes Jr. Done.